Welcome to the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and today I am joined by Marcus Walfridson from the Football Coach Mentoring. Is it company? What's the right way to say it? Is it just from Football Coach Mentoring?
I think from Football Coach Mentoring is fine.
Okay, there it is. So we're going to talk about a lot of different fun things here. And so I'm excited to get into the interview. If you're joining us live on YouTube, say hello, interact with us as we go along here. We would love that. Or if you're watching in the future, feel free to leave a comment and I would happily forward that on to Marcus. Marcus, hello. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well as well. All right. So again, I think I've said everything that I need to for the people on YouTube. So Marcus, any last questions for me before we get into the interview?
Nope.
All right, cool. Let's get to it. I'd like to welcome on Marcus Walfridson from Football Coach Mentoring. Marcus, hello. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And so you have a ton of just awesome experience. I'm really excited to have you on here today to talk about a lot of different things, but I really want to go back and start kind of in your youth and something I read on your about section of your website. So growing up, you played basketball, ice hockey, and floorball, which is kind of a version of hockey. What were your experiences like playing those other sports, and kind of how does that translate over to kind of the soccer pitch?
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, we called floorball the sport for those who couldn't play hockey. But eventually it's evolved to its own professional sport in Sweden, so it's and the Nordic countries, so it's pretty cool. Well, I mean, for me, I was always drawn to the team sports. I think that has something to do with my childhood, that I wanted to be a part of something. But I think it's also at least a reason why I didn't become really, really good at something. Because you hear sometimes today that people come out. I saw an interview with Drew Brees, because he's an investor in the surf thing. I read on Soccer Day, and he said that I'm a firm believer that you need to play many sports to be good. I don't agree. I think because it's good that you try different things, so you find your kind of sport, so you find your place to be. But then when you found it, I think you need to go all in. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance.
And that was exactly kind of where I wanted this conversation to go, because being Americans, a lot of times we play a lot of different sports, and specifically in the soccer football world, I think we lag behind technically because we play different sports. And so I wanted to get your perspective on if you kind of subscribe to that thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that you see these few people who have been able to make it. They come out and they are strong advocates for kids playing a lot of sports. But you don't see all of those people or those kids who played all these sports and didn't make it, which is a lot more. And you're starting to see research also that maybe it's not a really, really good thing. And of course, it's possible to combine one or other. So especially when you're younger. But sometime you need to specialize, especially after puberty, of course. Then you need to go one way. Otherwise, because today you see that the level of sports is increasing so much. So you wouldn't stand a chance if you keep doing 2 or 3 or 4 sports when you're 13, 14, 15.
So that kind of age, like around 12 or 13, you got to really start thinking about specializing. Is that your opinion?
Yeah, well, I would say so. I mean, somewhere around that. And I mean, for some it's later, for some it's earlier. I mean, I think the most important thing is that you, as a kid, that you do what you actually want to do. That you go for the sport that you really, really want to play. Because otherwise nothing else matters. Because if you don't like it, you're not going to get good.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And so I do want to get to the football coach mentoring aspect, but before we do that, on your site it says you've been a sporting director, academy director, head coach, assistant coach, youth coach, player developer, scout, coach educator, and board member. And then you're also a World Football Academy certified instructor and UEFA A license. I think you're probably the most qualified and experienced person we've had on this program. So with all those different roles, can you give us a sense of just your career path and how you kind of ended up doing all those different things?
Well, I think that also led to the fact that I wasn't good enough, maybe in one of these positions. But for me, it's when I started out coaching, I always had this dream about becoming a top coach, top level coach, and of course I achieved that for a short while. And my rationale behind all these positions was basically, if I'm going to be a top guy, then I need to know a little bit about everything. So And also when you're young and you're developing yourself as a coach, it's interesting to try different roles because it puts you outside your comfort zone, which is where you develop as a human being and especially as a coach. So being putting myself outside the comfort zone all the time has of course allowed me to grow a lot as a human being, and that's something I recommend for everyone. And also I think, and this is a key thing I think for young coaches, is you need to figure out where do you want to be, because there's a lot of different jobs, as you just proved, basically speaking about me, in the football world. So the question is, what do you really want to do? Do you really want to be a head coach? Because it looks good from the outside, but it's probably the worst job in football, because it's you're gonna get fired a lot if you're any good. Um, or maybe you want to be assistant coach because then you can actually coach. Maybe you want to be a youth coach because then you can be there and form these young people, which might be the best job across football. But I think that's the important thing, that you kind of figure out what is it that you actually want to do.
So you touched on something really interesting there where you said the assistant coach is the one where you can actually coach. And so for people who are on the outside, so a lot of us that are listeners, we love soccer, but maybe we're definitely not in the details like you are. Can you elaborate on what you mean by, assistant coach, you actually get to coach, whereas head coach, maybe you don't as much?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is, as a head coach, I mean, you are responsible for the whole thing, and you're also the face towards the media, towards the club, towards the fans. And of course, that means that you have a lot of different responsibility aside from just coaching. So yes, you are also coaching, of course. The head coach is coaching, so don't get me wrong. But the head coach is also thinking about a lot of different things, or needs to think about a lot of different things. As an assistant coach, your life is a little bit easier because you don't have to deal with the media, you don't have to deal with the fans, you don't have to deal with the board, you don't have to deal with the contract signings and all that stuff, at least not directly. So you can focus more on actually coaching players.
Got it. Okay. And so of all those roles you did kind of growing up, or not growing up, but in your career, which was the one that you found kind of most challenging?
That's a very good question. I haven't really thought about it. I think all of these positions was challenging in different ways. For me, that's a very good question. Maybe I would guess the board member thing was the most challenging because I was also very young at that age, so it was a totally new thing. But actually, I would say coaching the little ones. That was also probably the most challenging for me. For me, it's easy to coach someone who's older, who you can be more rational with. So it was a very, very good learning experience to coach the young kids. Because when you're coaching 6 or 7 years, and if you're able to do that, if you're able to improve them in a short period of time, then you can coach anyone. And I mean, the youngest player I've coached has been 6 or 7. The oldest was 50. The goalkeeper,
Wow.
of course, but and not a high level, but still, very, very fun.
Yeah, it's got to be interesting. I remember, I mean, growing up, and I was, a teenager. I have a younger brother, Matt, who's on this program, and just coaching him and just trying to keep attention span, keep kids engaged. Just is the biggest struggle when they're 6 and 7. At least from my perspective, is that kind of accurate or?
Yeah, I mean, but it's all natural because it's how the brain works. I mean, if you're 6, 7 years old, your prefrontal cortex is nothing, more or less. Very, very slim development there. So of course they are more on instinct, so they act more on instinct, which is also a good thing because it's actually, you can predict it. It's easy to predict as long as you know that's going on.
All right.
There we go.
Looks like we have.
Hi, man. Very, very well. Would you mind waiting for? I'm on a video call.
Fine. Yeah, I was just gonna blow the pine needles.
Perfect. Yeah. Give me 15 minutes. That's fine. Thank you.
So Marcus is outside right now, and so that's what I guess probably a blower or something like that. That was the sound right there. Getting back to this. So with being a board member, I guess what's involved in that? I'm just curious again because you have such interesting experience. Is that like you meet once a week? Is it more? Are you in the details? What's involved in that?
I mean, the board should be talking more about vision and making sure that everything is run in a good way. So basically what you do is you, as a board, you have the visions, you have the strategies, and hopefully you delegate work to other people. In my situation, it was an amateur club, and the amateur club in Europe is run by volunteers, so you don't have anyone more or less who's paid to do anything, which means that the boards are more doing work themselves. So in our case, I remember I started the process of rebuilding the facility, for example. That was my responsibility, and I didn't know how to do that when I was like 25 or whatever I was. So that was an interesting experience. But it's a lot of talk about money, unfortunately, especially in amateur clubs, because again, you don't have much income, you don't pay people much, but you pay some. So it's unfortunately a lot of talk about money.
Got it. Okay, and that kind of makes sense, especially when you're in that role. So we talked about the most challenging. What's the role that you liked best out of everything that you've gotten to do?
Well, I mean, it was part being on the top level in itself, different roles. But to be honest, it was more about maybe the academy manager role where I can work with the coaches. And I think that is also why I now started football coach mentoring, because I love working with coaches who want to improve, who really want to improve. That's my favorite thing. Working with human beings who want to improve themselves. That is amazing. And when you see what kind of impact you can have on someone's life in a good way, that's very rewarding for me. And the thing is, when you work with players, you have the same, but when you work with coaches, you indirectly also work with 20 players or something. So I'm able to affect the lives of more players by helping coaches become better.
Absolutely. And so with the football coach mentoring company, when did that start, and what was kind of the inspiration story? You told us a little bit about, what you like to do, but was there any sort of moment where you're like, I have to start this because of this reason?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically twofold. I think first, after I held the dual roles of assistant manager at top level and academy manager, which I don't recommend to anyone because I don't want to suffer. You work more weeks of 100 hours a week than 60 hours, if you know me. So not a good solution. So after that, I took a year off to kind of find myself and develop myself a little bit more. So I think that was kind of the ignition point, because that's when the idea popped up that, hey, maybe I can do something. So I started slowly mentoring a couple of coaches, and hey, this is fun, and I can see that I can help, and for some reason, whatever I say, that helps them. So okay, let's keep doing that. And then I went back into coaching for a short period of time at the top level, and there was something within me that said that even though that was also fun, especially dealing with the media and stuff, and you can try to play games outside the field, which is kind of fun. But except that and the Champions League and whatever, that was fun. But there was something missing, and that thing was being able to help more people, help more coaches. So after reflection, and I think it actually was here in Tampa last year, because I went here last year as well. I was here in August, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, this is what I should do. So this is kind of my purpose, my calling. So let's go all in, let's try, let's see what happens. And then of course, when you start something, it takes half a year before you get started anyway. So it started in April this year, and it's been pretty cool.
All right, cool. And so what does the company do? Can you describe it for people?
Yeah, I mean, so the basic idea is for coaches who want to learn more about coaching, and then, of course, especially football periodization, because that's something I also know a lot about. They usually don't have anyone to ask, and I felt this as well when I was coaching, that who am I supposed to talk to? Because if you talk to someone in your club, well, maybe they know something, maybe they don't. I mean, often they don't know. Especially in terms of periodization and that sort of things.
So can you elaborate on that, or are you going to?
The line broke a little bit.
Okay. With periodization, can you elaborate on that for myself and listeners?
Yeah, it's very, very simply put, it's how you plan to improve your team and individual players. So that's basically in very, very simple terms. And of course, football periodization is a concept developed by Raymond Verheyen from Holland. So who I've been traveling with this week in the US and arranging courses. So it's a topic that is there to make sure that you're able to improve your players holistically without or with reducing the risk of injury. So and of course many people have read the books and attended a course or two, but then when you're at the course you think very straightforward, and then you come out of the room and you think, wait a minute, I want to ask this and I want to ask this, so where should I go? So that is basically where the idea for FC mentoring appeared. And then what we do is we do a monthly live webinar, so more or less like this, where we have a topic and like we can dive into a topic, and we might have a coach who is in a hot seat, so I can coach the coach live so everyone else can see, because it might be that coach has a situation that's kind of similar to your situation, you know. And of course, everyone can also ask questions live. So they put me basically on the hot seat at the end. So it's really, really fun. And we're trying to, we are building a community as well. So we have our own Slack community. So things are going back and forth there. So it's really fun to keep track of. And yeah, lots of stuff coming up.
Awesome. Very cool. And so for anyone listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, we have the website linked in the video description, and podcast show notes will have all that. So if you want to learn more, check it out. Definitely go visit the website. So you touched on it a little bit there. Do you always have like a set style, or every month is it something kind of different? And or I know you're traveling right now, so is every sort of thing that you're doing different, or do you have a set kind of program that you like to stick to? How does it work?
No, it's different every time. So the topic is a little bit different every time. Although a slight giveaway here for the next webinar, because last time we talked about coach recovery, and next time I'm going to expand on it a little bit, but not for the whole session, of course, but for 10-15 minutes. Because I don't know if you know, but I wrote a blog post on the topic of coach recovery a couple of weeks ago. And I've had so many coaches reach out to me and talk about it and say, hey, it's right. I mean, we're struggling. We work a lot of hours. What can we do, you know? So basically, I just decided, hey, you know what? I need to do a training program for coaches to give coaches some strategies how they can make sure that they can recover better, so that their quality of life and can go up, and to make sure that they avoid burnout, basically, because I was very close to burnout myself, and so I know exactly how it is, and I don't want anyone to go through that. So that's a topic that's going to be touched upon again. I think it's August 12th. I think the next session is. Yeah, I need to do something to help coaches, because I see this as a topic that hasn't been talked a lot about.
All right, so that's something to look forward to. What's been the best thing that you've gotten to do with the company thus far?
Well, I mean, I think the best thing is just seeing that people are drawn to it, and the individual sessions, because we also do. It's possible to do personal mentoring sessions with me, so one-on-one, where we sit down for an hour and a half, and we send emails back and forth in between sessions and stuff. I think for me that's the most rewarding thing, because that's the thing I like the most. But just to see people coming in and enjoying it, and then now they are when I meet them in person as well, that I've done during this tour of the USA that we've done, it's also very, very rewarding for me to see that it helps.
Is most of it I know you do the webinars, is most of the one-on-one stuff you do, is that over the internet as well? Is it in person? How does it work?
It's mostly over the internet, because I mean, there are coaches from ranging from India to the US, so the whole in Europe as well, of course. So there's a coach from all over the place. So internet is the standard solution. But for example, I have a person I'm mentoring here in Florida, so I'm going to go out there and watch him do a session. Now that I'm here, so whenever I'm at a place or in an area where I could actually go and meet one of the coaches I'm mentoring, then of course I do it. It's so fun.
Yeah, and so listeners, we've listeners from all over the place. So if you're a coach, I mean, you can definitely get involved in this. So definitely don't hesitate. What's been the biggest challenge with building up the company so far? Myself, I've done a lot of different companies and projects, and I know the challenges that come along with starting something and trying to build something. What's been the thing that you've struggled with the most so far?
I would say getting the word out, actually, and I think you can recognize this as well. And because one thing is, and also how much you want to get the word out, because I'm not a selly guy, if you know me. So it takes doesn't feel natural for me to try to sell something very much. So that has been maybe the biggest struggle, which I've tried to overcome. So marketing, I think that's the biggest thing, because we are fresh. We started in April, late April, so almost May. So no one knows about us, if you know me. So it's only the coaches who really want to improve who have joined so far, and I think there are many more, of course. So I think we can do a lot of good stuff for many, but also I think it's good that it kind of builds a little bit organically, because then we can try different things out. And the sessions in the beginning were one way, and then now we kind of change a little bit to try to improve it. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but as you know, it takes time to build something that you want to do in a good way from the foundation. Build a solid foundation first.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's good that you have a community that you're building as well, because it'll help kind of shape the future of football coach mentoring. Now, what are your goals for the company? Is it just to help as many coaches as possible? Do you have anything specific that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, that is actually the main objective, is to help as many coaches as possible, and to build that community where you have coaches who are like-minded, who want to improve, who can share their experience, and eventually maybe even come together, so you can find maybe your next job through us, because you started to get to know people, know coaches. So you have coaches of similar education background, similar thinking, are at the same or the same places. So you can build small cultures in different places. I think that would be, of course, a dream, but we'll see.
All right, very cool. And I know right now before we went on air, you were talking about how you're in 6 different cities in 7 days or something like that. So what are you doing right now? Can you elaborate on what your life is kind of like, jumping from city to city?
Yeah. So what I do is I help Raymond Verheijen and then the World Football Academy to arrange coaching courses in the U.S. So we went from Seattle to San Diego to Denver to St. Louis to Tampa to Raleigh, and now I'm back in Tampa. So we did that, like you say, in 7 days. So the last 5 days were interesting. And we're coming back in January, by the way. So we will be. Raymond will be at the convention this year as well. He will be next to the convention this year, not at the convention, but next to it. So we will be at the Hyatt in Baltimore. So for anyone who wants to join us there, you can go to fce-usa.com. Football Coach Evolution, because that's the new name for Raymond's enterprise. And you can already now actually sign up for that Wednesday in Baltimore. If you know you're going to the convention, join us. It's only 60 spots, I think, so kind of tight.
And that's the National Soccer Coaches Convention that they kind of do over the same weekend as the MLS Super Draft, for any fans in America that may recognize that. With these cities and these programs that you're putting on, so you land. Can you give us a sense of like what you're doing during the day? Are you in a conference room? Are you out on the pitch? What are you doing like when you're in these cities?
Yeah, normally it depends on what the topic is and if we have a practical session or not. So this time we did not have any practicals. So we were only in the conference rooms or clubhouses. So we were in Seattle, we were at the 90. So the Seattle Sounders, their own, offices. And in San Diego, we were at the university, and now in Raleigh, we're at the North Carolina Youth Club. So that was really, really cool. So basically, we land, you go to the hotel, you sleep a couple hours, then you get up and you make sure that everything is set in terms of transport, and you of course check with the registration stuff. And I'm the guy you say hi to when you come into the room because I'm the guy who registers you. And then I just make sure that everything runs smoothly. So make sure Raymond has what he needs and the delegates has what they need, and help them out, answering questions, and helping out in any way I can do.
Got it. And so that's all part of the World Football Academy, I think, arm. And so I know you're a certified instructor. What's involved with being a certified instructor, and what does that kind of signify to people?
Well, I mean, basically, it means that I've been to a lot of courses. So that is basically what it is. So I am an expert in football periodization. So I also help a couple of clubs with that on the side. So it's also like a consultancy things, because that's also kind of fun. You can help without being in the middle of it, if you know me. So that's basically what it is. You have more knowledge than most in this area because you've attended more courses than most. Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense to me. And I believe you're also a UEFA A license coach. I know people kind of have a general understanding of what that is, but can you talk about the process of getting certified through that? Because I think it's a pretty rigorous course, correct?
It's a 21-day course over the year. So I did mine in Sweden. And I think it was 4 or 5 times because then I was living in Norway, so I had to go to Sweden and do the course. But it wasn't very, very tough. If you compare to doing the World Football Academy courses, or now the Football Coach Evolution courses, I mean, doing a expert meeting or a pro course at the World Football Academy is a lot more demanding than doing the FIA lessons. And also, personally, I think you learn more at the World Football Academy courses. But still, it's a good spot because you meet a lot of coaches and you get to be on the pitch, and you can learn a lot about yourself, especially from on the pitch. So I think that was the main fun thing to do, to being on the pitch and looking stupid.
Very cool. So I mean, you compared the two right there, and you said the World Football Academy, I think soon to be World Football Evolution. Is that what you called it?
Football Coach Evolution.
Football Coach Evolution is going to be. You said that is more intensive. What makes it more intensive? Is it just the density of the material? Is it I don't know, just the length of time? Why is it more intensive than the A license, in your opinion?
Well, I would say it's one thing I think in general, and that's that the bar is very, very high. So in the courses with Raymond, he expects you to behave the way you expect your players to behave. And it sounds pretty easy and it sounds very straightforward, but in reality, it turns out that we coaches, sometimes we are late to meetings. We sometimes use our phones during meetings and courses. I mean, if you guys who are listening, you've been to coaching course, you've also seen coaches go in and out of the room and, not paying a lot of attention because they're just there. However, when you are doing a team meeting for your players, that's not what you expect. You expect your players to be on time, to communicate to you if you want to go to the bathroom or need to go to the bathroom, to not use the phones, to be totally focused on the material. So I think that is the thing. What you see in coach education and federations in general is that those demands are not there because you have coach educators who like to be friends with the people in the room, especially if there are former players, for example. For Raymond, that is one bar for everyone, and that's very high. And make sure that you behave the way that you expect your players to behave, and you're all good. But if you start doing anything that you don't want from your players, well, you get to hear it.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a really good perspective on that. Last question on the World Football Academy. I know with the UEFA A license, it's a progression, right? You get a lower license that qualifies you for the next level, and so on and so forth. Is that the same case with the World Football Academy? Is there different levels?
Yeah, this it's
Okay.
actually international pathway. So it's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So level 1 courses are like football tactics evolution, periodization mentorship, and also football braining experience, which, by the way, for the first time will be held in Washington, D.C. this January. So also you can see that on the website. We can maybe add a link afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that's a 5-day course in USA, has never been done before. So I will save everyone $1,000 in travel expenses to Europe. So that's might be a good thing. And then you have level 2, which is the expert meeting. Level 3 is the pro course. Level 4 is the personal development course, and level 5 is the reference thinking course. So it's an international pathway that now is also becoming domestic, at least on the level 1 stage here in the US for the first time.
Very cool. Well, that's really cool and interesting, and something that I knew nothing about. So I'm happy we kind of dug into that. So that's really fascinating. Again, you've gotten to do a ton of awesome things in your career. Is there anything that you've had through either your travels or your experiences that you've been just like I'm going to call it a whoa moment, where you've just been like, whether you met a player or got to train a team or just visited a place you never thought, anything that you were just like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm getting to do this?
Strangely enough, no, which is kind of strange. Because every time when I meet a celebrity or something, it's like, oh, okay. So because I don't kind of put people on pedestals, I just try to basically observe people and see how they act and what they do, and then I kind of take my references from that. Just because you played a million games or whatever doesn't mean that you are the best human being in the world, if you know what I mean. So I think you should be judged by what you do. No. At the same time, of course, being in Manchester with the Champions League quarterfinal was kind of cool. So I have to admit that. But you've seen a lot of good stadiums. I mean, I traveled both as a player and as a coach. I traveled Norway, for example. So you've seen all these fjords and all this beautiful landscape. So when you're looking out from the plane, when you're coming in or going out, then you've had a couple of miniature wow moments. Definitely, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at too. So it could have been player or just places that you never thought that you might get to. I know you touched on, you said you might have someone in India who was a mentor. I don't know if you've ever gotten there. Like I don't know if you've traveled anywhere.
I actually had one now, but that's from when I was a player. We played a game. This is a second tier or third tier in Norway, and we played a game in the most northern city in the world, called Hammerfest. And I kid you not, there were more reindeer than people watching the game. So that in itself was kind of a wow moment. A very, very strange experience. And when you go out in the evening after you play the game, the sun is still there. It's very, very strange.
Wow, that's really cool. When it's amazing, just the experiences they've gotten to have. So it was really cool. We have one Twitter question for you, and that comes from Roxborough United Soccer Club. So that's a local club to Philadelphia. What's an important piece of advice that you'd give to volunteer youth soccer coaches?
I would say the number one thing for any coach is to educate yourself, and to find education that is objective, meaning factual based. So something you can trust and not just based on the latest thing, if you know what I mean. So instead of listening to people who have a cool badge on their chest and are from a big club, maybe try to find more objective information and learn from that. And so sacrifice the time, sacrifice a couple of days. You put those days into a year. And spend that money on education, because it's worth it for your players and it's worth it for yourself, because when you feel that you are doing a better job because you're now doing stuff that actually is a good thing to do, then that makes you feel a lot better about yourself. So I would say education, and I think hopefully we are doing a course in Philly next summer. Hopefully, we're not set yet, but we are hoping to do that because then we can help these guys out.
All right. Yeah. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And obviously with education, that there comes, cost associated with that. Is there anything, whether it's a site or maybe your own personal site, that you would encourage people who maybe, again, because they're volunteer coaches, I don't know how much money that they might have to support it. Is there anything free that you would recommend people to check out, whether it's podcasts or blogs or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I have a blog, so start there. Hey, I'm starting to sell myself finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my personal website, mwolfridson.com. So at least there's some information there you can read through. And also you have some guys in Germany, for example, that are really good. Spielverlagung. So I can recommend these guys. They know what they're doing. So that's a couple tips to start reading at least.
All right, there you go. So make sure to check that out. And again, we have most of that linked in the podcast show notes and video description. Marcus, is there anything that we didn't get to talk about here before I ask my final question?
Well, it might be the possible thunderstorm that I hear in the background, but I think we can let that be the next time.
All right, that sounds like a plan. But I like to ask this of all my interview guests: what's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world? So it could be, what you're doing with football coach mentoring. It could be the trip that you're on. You can take it any direction you want. What's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world?
It is actually related to football coach mentoring because it is this training program on coach recovery that I'm creating at the moment. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be in an office here in Tampa, and I'm going to write that up and make sure that we can get more coaches information about good strategies that you can use to make sure that your life is in balance, but also make your coaching world more efficient. So I have some cool strategies coming up, and that will be a training video. And for football coach mentoring members, of course, that will be free. I will price it very, very, very low for everyone else because I want the word out. I think that's more important than earning money. Then, of course, you also need to eat sometimes, so a little bit. But I think I'm going to price like $7 or something, just to make sure that everyone can see this video. I think that training program will be hopefully a big help for a lot of coaches, because I know that there are a lot of coaches working too many hours and doing should I say, too many things that they might not actually need to do. So this is something we're going to address in that training program. And that's what I'm really, really excited about.
That does sound exciting. And make sure you're following Marcus on social media. Make sure you check out the website to stay updated on all that stuff. We have it linked in the video description, podcast show notes. So Marcus, thank you so much for being here and talking with me today. In case people are just listening, I know you just said it, but can you remind people where to find you online?
Well, I mean, mwolfridson.com is my personal website, and that's also my handle on Twitter and Instagram and whatever's. But FC Mentoring, so fcmentoring.com, that's where you need to check out. Take the trial, 14 days, see what it's all about. You can go back and watch all the sessions we've done and the newsletters and everything in these 14 days. And if it's for you, I will be happy to help you.
All right, so check it out, everyone. Marcus, again, thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, see ya. People on YouTube that have joined and or are checking out this video in the future, thank you for being here. I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.